Started. Just wanted to say welcome to everybody. This is our first State of the Pantry that we have done for the organization, and we're really excited to share with you after such an outstanding and incredible year where things are at with the pantry, talk a little bit about the journey we've been on the past several years, and then talk a little bit about the future and the things we have planned. And then at the after the little mini presentation we have planned this morning, and we're going to turn it over to a panel for some questions. I will be on that panel, so you'll be able to ask me questions directly. Also on the panel is Jeff Seitz and Barbara Smith. And the way to ask questions, what we'd like you to do in order to ask a question is during the presentation, if a question crosses your mind, please put your name in the chat box. And then Lisa and Yasmin, who are helping manage the presentation, will call on you in the order that your name is entered into the chat box at the end, and we will take your questions then. I would like to allow Barbara and Jeff to introduce themselves. So you guys are spotlighted here. If you could go ahead and and state your name for the good of the group and tell them your role with the pantry.
Well, I'm Barbara Smith, and I know a lot of you, if not all of you. And together with my husband, Roger, we founded the pantry some 30 years ago. But it was like when I was 5, so just want to make that clear.
You're impressive 5-year-old, Barbara.
My name is Jeff Seitz. I'm the chair of the board of directors. I've been on the board of directors for about 3 years now. And welcome. I'm glad everyone could participate this morning.
Great.
Oh, we lost you, Laura.
Sorry. Thank you, Barbara and Jeff. And just as a reminder to everybody, this will be our panel at the end of the presentation this morning. And if you do have a question for any of us, and there's also people on the phone. So, you know, if we could see Yaz, if you could put up the team slide. I want to introduce the pantry team to this group. We're not going to have everybody individually spotlighted, but just wanted to list the names of the impressive group of folks that we have who are really a major part of steering the organization. So we have our board of directors, which is listed here. And thank you to each and every one of these folks. I know many of you are on the Zoom this morning. Our advisory council, which is a group of folks who give us advice and kind of help us steer our strategy and weigh in from many different perspectives on where the pantry is headed and how we're doing. And then our incredible staff team is listed here as well. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of them for their dedication and hard work. So when we get to the question and answer section, you can feel free to ask the panelists questions, or if you have a question for someone else, that's fine as well. So I just wanted to ground everybody in the sort of the core of West Suburban Community Pantry. And these are things that have been critical to steering the pantry since its inception. So the first is the vision. Our vision is a community without hunger. And we achieve that vision through a mission that really has 2 core components. The 2 core components are food for the hungry and resources to improve persons, to improve their quality of life, to empower persons, sorry. And those 2 things are really important. I mean, a lot of people see a vision and a mission and they think, okay, those are great words and they sound lovely. But we've really spent a lot of time over the past several years thinking about each of the words in these 2 statements and really embracing how we can be very, very committed to achieving those things. And I think you'll see that throughout the course of the presentation, that when we say our vision is a community without hunger, we really mean we want to achieve a community without hunger, and we're going to go the extra mile to make sure we're doing our part to make that happen through the two funnels that are in our mission. And then this past year, we went through an exercise of updating our value statement. And so our values are, we are compassionate, we are people-focused, we have a can-do spirit, we operate with integrity, and we are visionary. And each one of these values was come to through, a really rigorous process that we really looked at each and every word and thought about, does this really represent what we do? And the one that I want to just talk about a little bit is we are people-focused. Everything we do at this organization is focused on people. And that can be our board, our donors, our staff, the advisory council, but really at the end of the day, the people that we're all focused on are the people in the community who are in need. And we had a chance to talk to a few of those people this summer, shortly after the pandemic hit, and get their perspective on what West Suburban Community Pantry means to them. So I just want to, Lisa behind the scenes is going to be sharing a couple of video clips that are real short, but you'll hear from our clients.
Well, we have a lot of mouths to feed now, and since I'm not working, and the unemployment ran out, basically, and it's hard, it's hard. Food's expensive. We make a lot of meals out of all the food we get. You guys are feeding my whole family. I get cry.
I don't know what I would do without this pantry. I live in Lisle, so it's real quick. They're super helpful here. They're so friendly. Everybody is wonderful here, and they've always made me feel at home. I've come here many years now, off and on when I've needed the help. And so I've been on disability for 4 years, and now I need the help. But thank the Lord for food pantries.
Thank you, Lisa, for sharing those. And I think when we hear someone from our community say, thank the Lord for food pantries, we all can relate to that. And I think that those two folks independently really represent the spectrum of people that we serve. The first lady who we spoke to, had been put in a situation because of the pandemic and never really envisioned having to feed her family through any other means other than her own. And the other has had sort of on and off struggles in her life and has, welcomed us into her home to support her when she does face tough times. So there's all types of reasons that people end up at a food pantry, and those two ladies were gracious enough to share their stories. So I just want to spend a little bit of time looking back over the last couple of years and our strategy that we developed a couple of years after I started with the organization. I'm entering my 5th year with West Suburban Community Pantry. And in 2018, the board and staff and a few other folks weighing in developed a strategy for the organization that is really outlined in this house. And it starts with our vision for a community without hunger, and then breaks the mission into those two components that we talked about, food and resources, essentially. And at that time, we identified 4 basic pillars to helping us achieve our vision. And the food for the hungry side of the mission at the time was really critical to sort of making sure we achieve that vision. It's still critical to making sure we achieve that vision, but at the time we had a lot of work to do to kind of catch up, I would say. So optimizing pantry operations and increasing access to food have been a strong focus of ours over the past 3 years. And then under quality of life and resources, we really have been working on how we support access to basic needs services and find ways to open pathways to self-sufficiency for people in need. And then underneath the pillars of our house, obviously we needed to work on some foundational pieces. So resource development and marketing, our technology infrastructure, and then basically the organizational alignment and making sure we were ready to take on some pretty significant strategic initiatives. So I just want to, on the next couple of pages here, share a bit about what we've done in these areas and what are, what behind the scenes, what does Food for the Hungry look like at West Suburban Community Pantry? We are operating our store here in Woodridge, and we have opened up a shopping model at that Woodridge store and at King. Obviously, those things have been put on hold during the pandemic, but King is Irene King. That's a school-based pantry in Romeoville that we opened this past year due to the support of some very generous donors. We have expanded our service territory beyond DuPage into Will County. So Romeoville is one of those areas where we really wanted to make sure we could provide resources to the community in need. We have offered online ordering and an inventory management system internally to help us offer online ordering. We've worked on improving the dignity of our check-in process and the service that we provide to clients. We have all of our staff and volunteers are going through customer service training to make sure that everyone we encounter is greeted in a way that respects their position with the pantry and also respects their position in the community. And then we've remodeled our food pantry space to make it bright and welcoming for everyone involved. From an access standpoint, sorry, Yasmin, go back, please. From an access standpoint, we have on-site service and remote service. We're really operating a hub and spoke model. So we have the warehouse here in Woodridge, and then we have lots of tentacles into the community. We're doing targeted community outreach. We've increased our warehouse capacity. And again, we're pushing that online order functionality so that as many people in need that want to access us can. And then on the resources side, we do have case management services where we assist our clients with applications. So SNAP, Access DuPage, LIHEAP. We do offer transportation assistance in the form of gas cards. We do formal referrals to other organizations within DuPage County, knowing that we can't do everything to help our clients who have more comprehensive needs, and then also informal referrals. And then we also do work in education. So we have healthy sense classes, healthy lifestyle workshops. We're working on some mental health classes, job readiness, and financial literacy classes. So those are all of the things that the pantry has been doing based on that strategy we developed in 2018. And then, this past year, even though we were moving along really well on our strategy, no one could have predicted the pandemic that hit us. And this picture here is one of our board members, Mike Olson, who in March, when basically we had to rethink everything that we did at the pantry, he jumped to the front lines. And this is just a good representation of what our service had to change to. Wheeling a cart full of food out to cars while you're masked up and gloved up and keeping distance, and then just loading the food in the back of the car. So thank you, Mike, but thank you to all of our volunteers who jumped on the front lines to help us through this time. And we just want to show you a video of really what this past year has looked like for us. hard to believe it's been over a year, and I get emotional every time I watch that video, because even the video doesn't represent the amount of energy and effort and time and resources. And every single one of you on this Zoom call has been a part of helping us get through this year. And I just want to share, what some of the results look like from this past year. So we are currently serving 50% more families than we did in previous years. We now have 9 distribution sites throughout DuPage and Will counties where we're offering online order pickup or other types of distributions like the Irene King school-based pantry, and that includes our location here in Woodridge. We have 602 volunteers who help us every day make sure we can meet the needs of the community. So thank you to everyone for your commitment to the organization. And despite the pandemic, our progress on our strategic plan has been strong. We've improved our pantry operations. We've expanded access by adding Bolingbrook and Romeoville, as well as using new technology to go deeper in DuPage County. We've increased our revenue significantly and diversified our donor portfolio, renewed lapsed donors who had left us, and we've also built governance, staffing, and technology infrastructure that was really critical to helping us move forward. And I'm so proud of everything that this organization has achieved. And one of the things that I'm especially proud about is that, prior to this year, we had planned for a remodel of our pantry space so that we could increase our capacity to serve more people in need. And when the pandemic hit, we had to have a conversation internally about, how do we keep moving forward with this plan and not close down our doors even for one day, because people really need us. And so we were able to keep our doors open and go through our project to remodel the pantry to increase our capacity to serve. And it took, frankly, Herculean efforts on the part of our staff and volunteers to work around the construction, and from our donors as well, to continue to support us, knowing that both of these efforts were going to be crucial to us meeting the need in the long term. So I want to share with you a little sneak peek at what the pantry looks like now.
As COVID-19 persists and the need for food grows, West Suburban Community Pantry continues to fulfill the mission to give individuals, children, and seniors in need access to healthy food conveniently, discreetly, and with respect.
We know that 70% of people in need might not come forward to a food pantry. And there's lots of reasons for that. It might be time in their day, transportation to get to the pantry, or even their own pride. So we've really been on a mission to break down those barriers, and we've intentionally created ways to meet them where they are and also to serve them with dignity.
The Access 2020 initiative now underway gives clients the choice of foods while ordering their groceries privately and conveniently online. Added online order pickup sites throughout our service area and the redesign of our facilities enhance both the online and the in-pantry shopping experience for our clients.
Our fundraising campaign to complete this work was well underway when the pandemic hit. Immediately, we needed to shift our focus to get more food and resources into the hands of people in need. But we're so glad we planned ahead, because now we will have the extra capacity we need to keep up with demand.
A redesigned warehouse space allows for greater food capacity. A dedicated donation receiving area and order fulfillment space allows us to receive and distribute online orders on and off-site. From the moment they walk in the door, our clients will be greeted in a bright, welcoming lobby and will be assured that the registration process will occur in privacy and comfort.
We are deeply committed to the dignity and privacy that we can provide for our clients. So we created private intake offices so that each client can talk about what they need in a way that they feel comfortable, even if their needs go beyond food.
The Pantry staff offices and conference room have been moved to maximize the remodeled warehouse space. The conference room provides more space for nutrition classes, social service support presentations, board meetings, and volunteer training. The Pantry store has been designed to allow clients to shop the aisles and choose their own groceries in a clean and bright store-like setting. Glass cases display fresh produce, eggs, and milk.
When COVID-19 hit, our plans to renovate the Pantry store had to be put on hold. We immediately started using that space to pack the hundreds of boxes a day that were required to feed the community. But now, as we look to close the gap in our fundraising campaign, we can complete the Access 2020 project.
So the good news is we closed the gap in that fundraising project, and thank you to so many of you on the Zoom call today for being a part of that. The other good news is, as I mentioned earlier, we were able to keep our doors open through the entire time to make sure we were serving our neighbors in need who desperately needed us during the pandemic. And I would welcome any of you who are on the Zoom that would like to come over and take a tour of the pantry and see the remodeled space. You know, we're getting close to vaccinated time. So if you are vaccinated and feeling comfortable, feel free to schedule a time with us and come over and see the new space. And, you know, we had no idea when we started planning Access 2020, the initiative to increase our capacity, that food insecurity was going to skyrocket the way it did with the pandemic. But I feel like we were being sent a greater message, because now we are definitely more prepared than we would have been for that increased need, and for a need that we predict is going to stay high well into the future. We've been studying data for food insecurity when there is an economic crisis. And this chart right here shows the recession, food insecurity rates by ethnicity. And this is for the recession that happened in 2007. And you can see how food insecurity spiked. And the recession essentially was over by 2009. But if you look past 2009, you can see how food insecurity stayed high for several years past that recession timeframe. And so that's really what we're looking at and thinking, you know, we are going to need to be prepared for increased rates of food insecurity. You know, even when the pandemic is managed and the economy starts to bounce back, food insecurity tends to trail. So, you know, we are looking forward to increased rates, and we're also spending time thinking about this and thinking about how we can develop a new updated strategic plan that will help us address this likely higher than normal need for quite some time. So we have been, there is a board committee and staff committee that is working on updating our strategic plan, and we're going to give you a sneak peek. And this is by no means final, and it's still developing, and things on here can change, and every other caveat I could tell you right now. But what I want to make sure everyone on this Zoom hears is that we, while we looked at updating our strategic plan, we talked a lot as an organization about the things that we set out to do 3 years ago, and how we've made a ton of progress and we've achieved a lot of our goals, but we still have a lot of room for growth. And so we really want to make sure we are focusing on things that will help the community. So we've set some community objectives, And they are going to be things like expanding our reach to underserved communities. From that chart, you saw that Black communities and Hispanic communities tend to have the highest rate of food insecurity. We want to make sure we are reaching those communities as well as all of the populations in need. We want to make sure we're creating a dignified experience for everyone in the pantry. And while we've made progress, there is still more we could do to make sure we're doing the right things and to talk to our clients more about what they need from us to have that experience be as dignified as possible. And then we want to do things that enable financial stability and social support for our clients so that they can get on their feet and really start to be self-sufficient. And we've set some goals. Again, these are not final, but we are looking to increase the number of unique households we reach. We want to increase our client satisfaction, and we want to increase the percent of our clients who are utilizing our quality of life services. And so what you can expect more of in the coming years from West Suburban Community Pantry, you can expect more online ordering, expanding pantry pickup and remote pickup. You can expect us to be even more intentional about the foods we're procuring and securing for health, for ethnic preferences, and for social emotional needs of our clients. You can expect us to continue focus on dignity and ways we can improve on our model to make sure each client is greeted and treated with dignity. You can expect enhanced capacity to provide custom case management services for our clients so that we can meet their comprehensive needs. And you can expect us to pursue more partnerships, incremental partnerships that help provide access to supplemental services. As we've been going through this, I hope you've been putting your name in the chat box if you have questions, so that we can, once we open our panel, we can call on you to answer your questions. But before we turn it over to the panel, I just want to say a big thank you. We know with certainty that our work would not be possible without the generosity of supporters like you. This is a community in every single way, and we are all in this together. So thank you for being a part of our family and for helping us achieve our vision of a community without hunger. And that concludes the presentation section of our agenda. And I want to now open up for questions to our panel.
Fran, if you want to unmute and ask Barbara a question.
Hey, Barbara.
Hi, Fran.
100 years ago, you started this pantry. Well, okay, you said 30, but it seems like 100. It's been a long time. And I was proud to be part of that initial goal setting and all that stuff and creating a vision. With that in mind, how are you feeling about this current vision and the direction that the pantry is headed?
Well, you know, Fran, and of course you were with us way back at the beginning, so you were also 5 at the time. When Roger and I didn't start this. It actually started in St. Scholastica's church, but we expanded it from a closet there. And our goal was simply to try and help people in Woodridge to no longer have to experience hunger. And we had a small space the Park District gave us. We kept our list of clients, Laura will laugh, in a spiral notebook. I mean, this was, someone would call the church, they'd get referred to us, we would pack up a couple of bags of food, hand deliver it, and write down their name and address and phone number. It was really very high tech. But within 15 years, we were providing school breakfasts. We were doing nutrition classes, parenting classes, job search. And then within 20 years, we were in all of DuPage County. And it was like, I felt like I was in the middle of this kind of snowballing avalanche that I never knew was going to happen. because our vision had been very small. And yet I see that the pantries, the need for the pantry and the ability for the pantry to fill that need are continuing to grow. And it's with a great sense of pride that I look at that. And it's because of people on this phone call, people like the people here, the volunteers, the donors, your generosity, your giving of your time, talent, and treasure are making all of this possible. So I applaud each and every one of you.
Thank you, Barbara. Kathy McCain, do you have a question?
Hi, I actually had two questions I'm hoping the panel can answer. One is, can you tell me a little bit about the pantry's relationship with the Northern Illinois Food Bank, and if you've seen that change during the pandemic? And then second, I know we've all been seeing a lot of news articles and things about just the demand for food. And I remember reading in one of those articles that like a certain percentage of people had never before visited a food pantry. So is that data that you gather, and do you know what that information is for your pantry?
Hi, Kathy, this is Laura. I will take the first stab, and if anybody else wants to jump in. So we have a strong relationship with Northern Illinois Food Bank. They are, one of our primary partners in serving the community. Primarily, we partner with them to secure the food that we distribute. So they, I think the latest numbers are something like 30% of our food comes directly from Northern Illinois Food Bank, and then another 50% comes from food rescue partners that they help us secure. So a lot of our food rescue partners are grocery stores like Jewel, Mariano's, et cetera. And the food bank really helps develop those relationships on a national or on a national level with Feeding America and on a regional level with the food bank. And so we're very much lockstep with them on the food procurement side. They also, help us with trainings and other support of that nature. How it changed during the pandemic, I think that one of the things that was so startling about the pandemic was in the beginning when the pandemic first hit, we had literally we were shocked at the amount of just no one had the resources that we needed to really make the ends meet to meet the need. And so including the food bank. The food bank was struggling just as much as everyone else. And so that was one of the things that, was just kind of startling about the pandemic. Was normally as a food pantry, we would have turned to the food bank and said, help us find boxes, help us find masks, help us find gloves. And even they were having trouble finding those things. So I think what it did, I think, for us and for other organizations is just help us become a little bit more independent. I can't remember the saying, but basically the mother of all invention is a great need. It's something to that effect. And so we were all in great need, and we had to get creative about meeting those needs. So I would say that's one of the changes. And then the stat you're referring to, so we were actually a part of a work group that was an innovation team that Feeding America put together. And Feeding America did some national research where they identified that 2/3 of people who are on the supplemental nutrition program, the SNAP program, 2/3 of them have never used a food pantry and will not come forward to a food pantry for various reasons. And that research identified a couple of different barriers to coming forward to a food pantry. So time was a barrier, transportation was a barrier, pride was a huge barrier. And that innovation work group, which we were part of, worked on different ways to overcome those various barriers so that in a local community like ours, and also across the country, we could start to make an impact on reaching those people who have these significant barriers to using food pantries. And so that's why we really went down this path of not only online ordering, but also working on our customer service training and being really intentional about how we do our outreach to certain populations to make sure we're focusing on those barriers. It's also part of the reason why we added transportation assistance to our supplemental services, because we want to make sure that, again, going back to our vision, if we say our vision is a community without hunger, we can't hear a statistic like 2/3 of people who are in need aren't coming forward and using a pantry like ours. And so I think your specific question was about whether we know how that translates for DuPage and Will counties. And I will be honest and say we don't, but we have sort of made the leap of faith that if nationwide, that's the statistic, it's likely that generally that same statistic applies to DuPage and Will.
Laura, there's a question in the chat. What are the steps for the 21-25 strategies?
So we are, and Jeff, feel free to jump in here. We are very much in the initial planning stages. And in fact, the chart I showed that I caveated in 75 different ways is still being worked on and reviewed by the board and the advisory council. So we are, there's a committee, a strategic planning committee, and I think several members are on this Zoom call. But that committee is working on finalizing those, the strategic components. And then from there, we will build out work plans using basically a subgroup of people who will help us build out work plans for each one of the strategies that end up being developed as a result of that planning. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add there?
I just want to tell you, we've got some very experienced people on the board here in terms of strategy planning. And they have gone to great lengths to try to dig up statistics, data, in the region in terms of helping us define where are there gaps between, food security, et cetera. And we're using that information to help drive what we're planning to do next. So as Laura said, we're kind of still at the high level of setting the high level goals, and then we'll, over the next couple of months, plan to drive out the detailed approach.
Great. Another question in the chat, what type of experience and/or training is provided to help clients with financial management issues? And do you have a need for more volunteers in this area?
So Kristen, are you on the Zoom? And if you want to jump in and answer the question about the financial management training, you will do a much better job than I will. But if you are not on the Zoom, I will go ahead and say that we have a partnership with
I'm here, Laura, if you want me to, but
oh yay, thank you for saying
no, you're fine. We partner with Hope's Front Door to do financial literacy classes or workshops, or refer our clients directly to them for their financial assistant type needs. As far as volunteers possibly helping with this, I'm always open to discussing with anyone that has like a background in that area that might have an idea of how they would want to help our clients, either in a group setting or individually. So we can definitely talk further about that if that's of interest to anyone.
Thanks, Kristen. Another one, how is WSCP interacting with smaller pantries like the church pantries in the future?
That's a great question, and one that we talk a lot about, and honestly are still sort of noodling our way through what our role really is and what our role should be. You know, I think that that the answer to that question really needs to be a part of a broader conversation with the food bank and with other pantries. You know, we will, from our angle, continue to advocate for, you know, our position has been, you know, if we can help support smaller pantries in their efforts to serve the community, then we would like to be able to do that, and we'll continue to advocate for that. You know, frankly, we've also looked at things like, you know, do we support a smaller pantry coming in under our fold? And we just have to, those are really big, important strategic decisions that we've spent a lot of time thinking about and identifying places where we want to expand our reach, where there might be an opportunity to do that. So it's a great question and something that we are definitely spending time talking about and thinking about as we go through our strategic planning process.
Laura, if I could just add something, kind of a corollary to that. The churches, at least in the local area around here, have been extremely supportive of the pantry. When the pantry actually moved out of St. Scholastica and in the 90s started, you know, going out on its own, all of the churches in Woodridge came together to support it, and they still do that. So rather than, in that case at least, rather than forming their own food pantries, they have chosen to support us, donating food, volunteers, money. And some of the, I know of a couple of smaller food pantries in the Downers area that just started referring people to us and decided they didn't need to keep their own pantry. So my thought when Roger and I had been more actively involved in the pantry was that we would like to have brought them all kind of into the fold, not by way of absorbing them or becoming big brother or anything like that, but that by pooling our resources, we could do a better job of serving the community. And I see some of that happening, but I do think that there's some concern that, you know, they don't want somebody to come in and take over them, and that's not what we're trying to do. So it's a, you know, it's a process that that's kind of a slow process, I think, Laura.
Absolutely, and thank you for that perspective, Barbara. It's definitely one of the things that we're working on trying to figure out.
Another question from the chat. Are there any specific goals of your strategy that NIFB will help you achieve? They have much greater capacity to improve technology, etc.
And let me explain a little bit why I'm asking that question, because Laura, as you know, my daughter works for the Greater Chicago Food Depository, and two of the projects she's working on is developing technology for public benefits, and that's going to be pushed out to all the food pantries that are supported by the Chicago Food Bank. And you know, it's basically going to be not a laptop, but a tablet that all the food banks will get, or food pantries will get, to go out to the community and sign people up for Medicaid and SNAP and, you know, you name it. And then the second one is just going out to communities that are much in need and working with partnerships, you know, with churches and you name it. And certainly the food banks have much more dollars and have received grants to develop that kind of thing. So I'm asking if, you know, what NIFB is working on.
Right. And Judy, thanks for clarifying that question. And also, I'm so excited for Erin that she's working at the Food Depository. That's a great organization. And I love that, the passion to fight hunger kind of spreads its wings throughout. And I can't speak directly to what Northern Illinois Food Bank has planned for the future in terms of technology. We do partner with them on things like assistance for SNAP applications and things of that nature. We also have seen demonstrations that they've done for different technology tools that they have developed. One of the things that, and I love, hopefully Greater Chicago and Northern Illinois are talking and collaborating about the outreach into the communities that you just mentioned, because that's one of the things that we have been, in our little corner of the world, we have been trying to figure out how we do a better job and how we make sure access to technology is, transcends all of the communities. So hopefully there's some collaboration there. One of the things that we have found challenging, just to be totally transparent with this group, is that, and I know the food bank would nod their heads and say, yes, this is challenging, is that when it comes to certain systems like databases or even the online ordering system, it has proven very challenging for the regional office like the food bank to create something that can be customized in a way that each and every local food pantry needs to really meet their overall systems needs. And so we continue to partner with them and provide them feedback and input on what will work in our local community. And they, are working to try to make sure they gather that from their, hundreds of pantries that sort of come up under their umbrella. So I think that's the big key, is how we make sure that communication stays open so that we can really benefit from the dollars that they receive at the regional level in a way that is operationalized appropriately for us and really works for us on a day-to-day basis.
And if I could add, that, when we were in the process of looking to develop the online system that we did, we explored a lot of different opportunities out there, different organizations, different software. Why reinvent the wheel? We thought this must exist out there. And what we found out is there's a wheel, there's a diamond, there's a square, there's every single organization that had any kind of existing system had obviously customized it to the way they did business, and which was not the way we did business and the way that we operated. And so we were at the time, for instance, faced with the decision of, well, do we completely change the way we do to fit some software that won't be necessarily customized for our particular needs and unique experiences, customers, etc., or do we build it ourselves? And we ultimately decided to build it ourselves. And we actually found that we were pretty much ahead of the curve, for a lot of organizations. When you look at something as large as NIFB or Greater Chicago, while you look at them and having the capacity to be able to develop something like that, they also have a lot more administrative concerns. They have to deal with all these underlying organizations that all have the exact same concerns we did. They don't necessarily operate the same. So we're finding that, like I said, we're a little bit ahead of the curve. We're looking at the possibility of sharing our software with other organizations because everybody's starting to get on board, but we're already out there and we got something that's operational and that we think works very well for us. And then it becomes a matter of, well, great, if we're going to share the software, are we going to start customizing software for every organization that uses it? Or, we don't want to become a software company. That's not exactly our core business, but you can see that there's, and what I'm describing for us is the same for all these other organizations. So there's a lot of challenges. It's like the whole information technology world, well, do you want to be Google or do you want to be Microsoft or do you want to be Apple or, everybody's got their own way of doing things and there's nothing that's really standardized. So that is really the challenge at the moment. You'd think we could all come together and make one system work together, and we're not there yet. So.
Yeah, and that's very true, Jeff. And we definitely don't want to become a software company. That does not that is not in our vision or mission.
Spin that off on something.
But I do think, you know, Judy, I think your point is well taken, that there are advances that are happening, and the more we can figure out, even if it's learning, how to make sure we're all staying connected and learning from each other, and making sure that donor dollars go further by minimizing the recreating of the wheel. That's definitely a goal that we all have. I can't tell if there's any other questions. Did anybody else have any questions for us?
I think Deb Newman has one question.
I actually have two questions. I know, Laura, that you talked about how tough it's been to keep things going while you were operating under the pandemic restrictions. And I know that, you know, the construction is really close, but I'm wondering if you can tell us a little more about what happens with the shopping store aspect of the pantry reconstruction and what's going to happen in terms of being able to bring clients back on.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things we still need to do on the pantry shopping floor to make it really ready for us to open our doors to the public. We have, so the store floor is still configured for our current method of serving clients, which is filling boxes and rolling carts through the center of the store, out the door and into the trunks of cars. And, you know, we think we'll be doing that still for a short while at least. So, you know, when we get to a point where we're thinking about being ready to open for clients to come in and shop again, we will be reconfiguring that store floor. We're going to be doing some refreshing of paint. We're going to be, you know, adding a few more glass case produce coolers, things of that nature. And then we also have a pass-through door that is still being inserted in between the warehouse and the store floor that will need to be updated. So there's a few things that this Close the Gap campaign that we just completed will help us, you know, be able to complete before we welcome shoppers back in. And our goal right now is, you know, sometime by early summer to be able to start welcoming shoppers back in small groups to shop and select their own groceries in a very COVID friendly way, just like you would go to the grocery store. Now that said, that's another thing I'm going to put out there and then caveat 75 different ways, because we are at the same time paying very close attention to the COVID numbers and the guidelines that come out from, you know, from the Department of Health, so that we can make sure we are, you know, doing any plans we make are being done very safely. So hopefully by early summer, we'll be welcoming people back in to shop the pantry floor.
So Laura, there's a question that came up and I'm just going to jump on it because it sort of leads from where we're talking about. Have you been able to look at any upgrades to the air handling system in the facility during the pandemic?
So when we went through the construction process, all of the filtration systems were reviewed, and any upgrades that were needed were done at that time, so that we could make sure we were up to code based on, you know, the current building codes.
And I have one more question that's mine actually, and that is, given the fact that you had an 85% increase in your revenue last year, but you probably had a commensurate appeal in terms of need that you had to spend things on to make what you just described happen. Where do you have need now? Where can donors help you the most now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I will say the thing that keeps me up at night from a pantry longevity standpoint, in order to meet this growing need, it's that chart that we looked at that showed how high food insecurity stayed after the recession in 2007. And so I guess the thing that I would say to our donor community is we are in this for the long haul for every one of those years where food insecurity stays high, and then even after it levels out. And, you know, we have been able, because of the generosity of our donor community, we've been able to step up and meet that need. And, you know, just being frank, we will need continued generosity from the donor community in order to continue to meet that level of sustained high need. And so that's the, you know, I think the thing we all need to be thinking about is, yes, we were able to rise to the challenge this year. And just, you know, for people who don't know, there's a lot of food pantries out there, a lot of small nonprofit organizations in general that didn't make it through this past year because they just didn't have the resources to pivot the way we and others were able to pivot. And it was through the generosity of the donor community that we survived and are still, you know, thriving in our efforts to meet the need. But as that need stays high, we will need to make sure our incoming resources stay at that same level. And so we just would ask that you all continue to consider us in your, as you think about what organizations you want to support, because we want to be able to continue to be there for the community for whatever the demand is.
Because ultimately, we are not looking to, you know, go back down, as Laura said. We are serving more people, and while we want the need to go down, we want to continue to expand to reach more people, you know, to make sure that you know, that 2/3 of people who aren't getting, you know, what they need. So, you know, that's part of our vision, is to continue to reach more and more and grow, you know, to make that happen. So even as the need goes down, you know, we want to continue to expand into the right areas where, you know, I talked about some of the data and the strategy of where are the people in the greatest needs that we can reach out to. And you know, everyone has just been tremendous in terms of their response over the past year. Just I mean, it's just unbelievable how generous people have been. And you know, we couldn't have done it without that, honestly. It was just awesome. And so we hope that we are inspiring you, that we have the ability to make this happen, you know, to continue to reach more people.
There's a question in the chat. How do you foresee reaching out to the 2/3? So we're actually working on a strategy right now that includes, let me just back up and say, I think there's a couple of components. Reaching the 2/3 is a combination of our programming. So making sure we are accessible in the areas where those 2/3 are, coming closer to their community, meeting them where they are more. And that's part of why, you know, we're doing things like online ordering. That's part of why we looked at and did open a school-based pantry in Irene King Elementary School in Romeoville. We have partnerships with school districts across DuPage and into, you know, Bolingbrook and Romeoville and Will County, because the people who are closest to people in need are folks like the school social workers, the school administration team, the church groups, the local library, the local park district. So we have built those partnerships with trusted organizations so that we can make sure we have programming where people live and where they are already going. So that's one component. A second component is just how we get our name out there and get information out about our services. And frankly, like that's one of the things that we haven't always done a great job at least in my tenure here. We've been doing great work, but it's just been in the last couple of years that we've done a really great job of getting our voice, getting our voice out in the community. And so we have been spending a lot of time thinking about what type of mediums that 2/3 might be using. How are they getting information about where they get services, and how can we get our information about our new services into their into their conversations. And we know it's a combination of sort of classic outreach tools like flyers that go through those trusted organizations, social media in moms groups in local communities, things of that nature, where it's kind of traditional outreach mediums, but then also word of mouth. So we are planning for a really structured outreach push that includes talking to those different populations, and that 2/3 specifically where they're consuming media, but then also making sure we're leveraging people who are already using our services and asking them to spread the word for us. So we know that word of mouth is the best way to make sure people in need find us. And so, and a part of us is just being really open and partnering even with our community members that we're serving, our clients, and saying, hey, have you had a good experience using this system? And if you have, can you, make sure you tell your neighbors, because we want to make sure we're reaching as many people as possible. So it's through that combination of the right programming and then the right outreach that we'll be able to reach that 2/3.
Laura, I had a question come in. Can you talk about serving seniors and homebound individuals as the population in that sector grows?
Yes, definitely. So we currently have a senior home delivery program that is intended primarily for homebound seniors. And I think our latest stats, we were upwards of 35 senior citizens that were doing home delivery for on a monthly basis. And those what happens with those deliveries is a volunteer comes and packs them their monthly groceries and then takes it right to them. So that's a program that we'll look to continue to expand our capacity for and make sure we can serve even more people in that way. The other opportunities that we've looked at are making sure we have partnerships with senior housing facilities throughout the community, so that they're aware of the different ways that we can in our strategy to meet people where they are, how do we partner with those senior housing communities to make sure that people in those communities have access to the groceries they need. Additionally, as we look at our food sourcing strategies, we want to look at making sure we have the right foods on our shelves that are things, not only foods, but products. So we know that, for example, adult incontinence products are really in high demand. And so if we can make sure we have the right products that they need and can meet their nutritional needs and other needs through through our product availability, we'll be able to hopefully reach those people effectively. But it's definitely something we need to be thinking about, and we are thinking about as we know those numbers are going to surge. You guys have had great questions. I had to get a sip of water because I was getting dry. Any other questions? If there's no other questions, I just want to wrap up and just say a heartfelt thank you. As I said earlier, it's been such a journey over the past several years, but this past year especially has been just an all hands on deck experience. And I know it was frustrating for a lot of you on this Zoom, and for a lot of our partners and volunteers, that there were limited ways that everyone could step forward and have all hands on deck. But I just want to say, there is no way this organization would be doing what it's doing today and would have made the progress we have made without every single person who is listening to this Zoom. And we're so grateful and humbled by your support, and look forward to doing great things together in the future. So thank you.
Laura, I want to thank you for continuing the mission, the vision of the pantry, for continuing to grow it beyond even what Roger and I ever thought it would be. I remember Joe Perino from Home Run In asking us early on, what would you do if you had $100,000 a year income? And we went, oh my God, I don't know what we would do with that. But obviously it's way past that now. And thank you for all that you have done to bring it to where it's at today.
Thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate that. That's very meaningful.
And I just want to add, the staff that we have are just awesome. From everybody on the team, it's just done over the past year, tremendous job, and can't thank them enough for all their hard work. So thank you, Laura, and everybody, Lisa, Kristen, everybody on the team.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Jeff. We do have the best team in town, in the state, and in the world. So, so I'm very proud of them. And I just want to, again, thank you all. Our board is great. We have great leadership across the board. The advisory council, thank you for being on, and every single person and your organizations that you support. We appreciate you. And thanks for being on this ride with us. And have a great weekend. Enjoy.
Laura,
hopefully we get some nice weather.
Laura, I would just
Yes.
like to say thank you to you and the staff and all its fantastic volunteers. It's an organization that I'm proud to be a part of. Thank you.
Absolutely. We would definitely be nowhere without our volunteers. So thank you, Susan, for bringing that up.
Thank you for a great presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you. Take care, everybody.